Welcome to TV Africa News. This is Africa Today. My name is Najima Lima, but first are the headlines.
In Africa Today, incumbent Kampala Lord Mayor Erias Lukwago wins the city mayor race. Chagulanyi's lawyer files arbitrary detention complaint at the United Nations. Also today, in United States, Joe Biden sworn in. And in sports, CHAN 2021 race to quarterfinals gets tighter. These and more stories in our bulletin.
Now the news in detail. Today, people have voted for their local leaders, including city mayors, LC5 chairmen, and councillors. In Makindye division, voting began in a somber mood as few voters had arrived by 7 a.m. However, the turnout for today's elections has been very low. Our reporter Ndalugo has more on this story.
At Chiko polling station located in Juko, Masaku Zone, Chibuye 1 Parish, Makindye West constituency, among the 2,650 registered voters, the turnout was low compared to the previous one of presidential elections. Few people were lining up to cast their votes for Kampala City Mayor, Division Mayors and LC5 Lord Councillors. Musa Lubega Nkatuzi, a supervisor at this polling station, says voting is moving on smoothly, although the turnout is low.
Okulonda nga bwe kutambula tuwanna bakubaawo nsasagge yonna kitwala wabula abantu bakendedde okusinziira ku muwendo guli bwe twaliko ku pulezidenti ne ba MP kati abantu batono nnyo nera okulonda kutambula kasoobo olw'abantu abakola ki abantu okulonda bwe balonda pulezidenti kibalonze ne bawulira nga si kyekyo kibalonze abasinga tibaagala kudda kulonda.
We continue to other polling stations like Nabisalu polling station, Chibuye 1 Parish in Makindye division, and others where the turnout was low. Damba Charles, who was in charge of defense, the low turnout of voters put it to the Electoral Commission for non-sensitizing and mobilizing people the importance of voting.
Abantu buli bali basinga obungi naye olwaleero abantu batono nnyo. Naye mu ekyo njala kukireeta nga Bayibuli bwegamba nti olubereberye okwagala kw'abantu kwali kungi naye ate oluvannyuma okwagala kw'abasinga obungi kwakendeera. Oyinza okuba wabeerawo ebintu ebyabatawaanya oba ebyabalemesa.
Voters say they were disappointed by the results from presidential and parliamentary elections. For TV Africa News, Nalugo Muyingo reporting.
Moving on, the National Unity Platform president, who also contested in the concluded presidential elections, Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu, he is also under house arrest by the military, has filed an arbitrary detention complaint to the United Nations. We have more on this story.
Chagulanyi's residence in Kampala has been surrounded by the army since Friday, a day after Uganda conducted presidential elections in which Sentamu Chagulanyi competed against President Yoweri Museveni. President Museveni was re-elected with almost 59% of the vote, followed by Robert Chagulanyi of NUP with roughly 35%. The National Unity Platform president, Robert Chagulanyi, said he will legally contest the result of the presidential election, alleging widespread fraud during the January 14th polls, seen as Uganda's first election in which there was a real threat to Museveni's government. For TV Africa News, Nango Muyingo reporting.
Moving on still, incumbent Kampala Lord Mayor Salongo Elias Lukwago has won the city mayor race, extending his reign over the capital city to his third term. Let's take a look.
Lukwago beat competition from 11 other contestants, including Joseph Mayanja, also known as Jose Chameleon, who contested as an independent candidate, incumbent Kampala Woman Member of Parliament Nabila Nagai Sempala from the National Unity Platform, Daniel Kaziwe, also known as Ragadi of the National Resistance Movement, among others. Despite Lukwago's victory, Noobs Nabira and independent Joseph Mayanja claimed the election was marred with irregularities, accusing Lukwago of rigging. Nabila further blamed Kampala leaders for colluding to fail her and the National Unity Platform.
Right now in Gaba, they've just reported, they've just called the presiding officer, tearing like 4 ballots for certain individuals. They've just apprehended them. I got that report and sent somebody from a station that is in the vicinity of Makindye East. They brought ballots of Kasubi to Kabowa. Then the Lord Woman councillors' ballots are lacking. They have shifted some people to Ndeba, those of Kabowa. So I think there is malpractice already. And I've just heard at Christ the King Civic Center around that area, police, the army has cordoned off because malpractice is still 2021 general elections. This is just the next phase of the election. So when I see that being played out from the night, from the eve of the election, and it's across parties, so I think there is a problem, and I think NUP is being targeted unjustly because when
Nabila got 60,082 votes, only with a difference of 134,510 with Lord Mayor Elias Lukwago.
Let's take a very quick short break. We will be right back.
Born 1937, King Cobra lost none of his bite, even after losing presidential elections in 2001, 2006 and 2008. After a decade in opposition, he was elected president in September 2011 and became the 5th president of Zambia. A social democrat, he leads the Patriotic Front (PF), a major political party in Zambia. Under President Frederick Chiluba, Shatta was a minister during the 1990s as part of the movement for multi-party democracy government. He went into opposition in 2001, forming the PF. As an opposition leader, Shatta, popularly known as King Cobra, emerged as the leading opposition presidential contender and rival to President Levi Mwanawasha in the 2006 presidential election, but was defeated. Following Mwanawasha's death, Shatta ran again and lost to President Rupia Banda in 2008. After 10 years in opposition, Shatta defeated Banda, the incumbent, to win the September 2011 presidential election with a plurality of vote. Michael Chirufu Shatta was born and brought up in Impika, Northern Province. He worked as a police officer, railwayman, and trade unionist during colonial rule. Michael Shatta, who won presidency in elections in September 2011, died while in office October 2014. He died aged 77 at a London hospital where he had been receiving treatment from an undisclosed illness. Concern for his health had been mounting, and he hadn't been seen in public since returning from the UN General Assembly the previous month, where he failed to make a scheduled speech. May his soul rest in eternal peace.
Welcome back. You're still watching TV Africa News, The Right to Know. In our health news today, Zimbabwe's foreign minister dies from COVID-19. It is yet another death of a senior government person from COVID-19 in Africa. We have more on this story.
Zimbabwe's Foreign Minister Sibusiso Moyo on Wednesday died at a local hospital. Government spokesman George Charamba attributed the minister's cause of death to COVID. Moyo was the army officer who went on state television on November 15, 2017 to announce the military's takeover of power from former late President Robert Mugabe. Moyo thus became the face of the internal revolution directed against Robert Mugabe, an involvement rewarded by his appointment to the post of Minister of Foreign Affairs and Internal Trade in late November 2017 by the country's strongman Emmerson Mnangagwa. Zimbabwe is facing a second wave of the pandemic, which is thought to be tougher officially. Harare says it has recorded only 52 deaths since the start of this new wave. But according to data from Johns Hopkins University, there has been a spike in COVID-19 infections in Zimbabwe since Christmas Day. Over half its 28,675 total cases and 825 total deaths have been recorded, the data says. The Zimbabwean Association for Doctors for Human Rights has warned the country's hospitals are unable to deal with an increased demand for admissions.
In our business news today, hundreds of heavy-duty trucks have remained stuck on roads in Nigeria's economic capital, Lagos, as they wait to get access into the Tin Can Island port. Let's take a look.
The congestion, which is almost crippling operations at the Lagos Tin port, has compelled some shipping lines to divert Nigeria-bound cargoes to neighboring ports in Kaduna and Cote d'Ivoire, according to Nigerian Ports Consultative Council. The congestion, which is almost crippling operations at the Lagos Tin Can port, has compelled some shipping lines to divert Nigeria-bound cargoes to neighboring ports in Kaduna and Cote d'Ivoire, according to Nigerian Ports Consultative Council. A long-running crisis at the Apapa and Tin Can Island ports, Lagos, the main commercial entry points into Africa's largest economy, Nigeria, has been worsened by the pandemic-induced economic slump. With the then imposed lockdown and many curfews, dock labor was hampered, lowering productivity and extending the long stays of the vessels. But some experts say the port congestion is caused by even more factors that include aging infrastructure, mirage rail transport that forces around 90% of cargo to go by road, and an almost complete lack of automation. As port congestion worsens, cost of shipping containers is reported to have risen by 600%. Meanwhile, Nigeria reopened its borders within Benin in December 2020, but heavy goods vehicles are reportedly still not making cross-border trips. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement came into effect on January 1st, but many Nigerian businesses have complained that higher costs make it hard for them to compete. Around the world, the coronavirus pandemic has strained international supply chains and threatened to disrupt trade. The Nigerian human rights lawyer Femi Falana has filed this complaint on his behalf to the UN Working Group on arbitrary arrest, challenging the Ugandan police and the military for their continued illegal confinement.
Security forces in Mali dispersed a protest in Bamako Wednesday as they fired tear gas at dozens of protesters during an unauthorized march against French military's role in the country. Earlier, Bamako City Hall had banned the protest against the French military, citing COVID-19 restrictions. Let's take a look.
Protesters on motorbike convoys managed their way through police roadblocks. The protesters, who were in a central square of the Malian capital, fled before the canisters were fired. Amadou Lamine Diallo, spokesperson, says they have understood that the authority needs popular support from more than confrontation with the people. It is in this logic that we have decided to postpone today's activity, but we are going to continue the flight in a different way and with authority. Mali has been struggling to defeat jihadists insurgents which first emerged in the north of the country in 2012, before spreading to the center and neighboring Burkina Faso and Niger. France, its former colonizer, intervened in 2013 to help drive out the jihadists forces advancing on Bamako. France, its former colonizer, intervened in 2013 to help drive out the jihadist forces advancing on Bamako. Currently, it has been 5,100 troops deployed across Africa's Sahel region as part of its anti-jihadist force, Barkhane. But some are disturbed by their continuous presence. Earlier this month, 20 people were killed in a strike by a helicopter. Eyewitnesses claimed that the victims were guests attending a wedding ceremony, but France's military insists that it had struck jihadists, ruling out any possibility of a mistake. The French military's role in the country have often faced criticisms on social media and by civic leaders.
Still in international news, Joe Biden became the 46th President of the United States on Wednesday, declaring that democracy has prevailed. Let's have more on this story.
Robinette Biden Jr. do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
Biden swore the oath of office to take the helm of a deeply divided nation, inheriting a confluence of crises arguably greater than any faced by his predecessors. On a chilly Washington day dotted with snow flurries, a bipartisan trio of ex-presidents along with the elite of nations government gathered, ensuring the quadrennial ceremony persevered even it was encircled by security forces, evocative of a war zone and devoid of crowds because of the coronavirus pandemic. Biden said that the will of the people has been heard and the will of the people has been heeded. We have learned against the democracy is precious and democracy is fragile. At this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed. And then he pivoted to challenges ahead, acknowledging the surging virus that has claimed more than 400,000 lives in the United States. And then he pivoted to challenges ahead, acknowledging the surging virus that has claimed more than 400,000 lives in the United States. Biden looked out over a capital city dotted with empty storefronts that attest to the pandemic's deep economic toll and where summer protests laid bare the nation's renewed reckoning. On the racial injustice. Biden was not applauded by his predecessor. Flouting tradition, Donald Trump departed Washington Wednesday morning ahead of inauguration rather than accompany his successor to the Capitol. The three other former presidents, Bill Clinton, George Bush, and Barack Obama, gathered to watch the ceremonial transfer of power. Trump, awaiting his second impeachment trial, instead flew to Florida after stoking grievances among his supporters with the lie that Biden's win was illegitimate. Biden, in his third run for the presidency, staked his candidacy less on any distinctive political ideology than on galvanizing a broad coalition of voters around the notion that Trump posed an existential threat to American democracy. On his first day, Biden will take a series of executive actions on the pandemic, climate, immigration, and more to undo the heart of Trump's agenda at a moment with bonds on the Republic strained.
Let's take a very quick short break. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching TV Africa News at The Right to Know. In our sports news today, race to quarterfinals gets tighter as the match day 2 or 3 in Group A took place Wednesday with the indomitable Lions of Cameroon hitting the grounds with their main contenders, the Eagles of Mali. Let's have more on this story.
Drive of goal and a 20-header goal! Goal to the indomitable Lions of Cameroon.
Cameroon, who took a slight possession over Mali, striking their only goal at the 60th minute through a superb header from their defender Solomon Charles Banga. The Eagles of Mali later equalized in the 12th minute through a free kick from Isaka Sameke. The Mali team tried many shots at the target, but the tactical Cameroonian defense stood their ground. Cameroon and Mali top Group A with 4 points, each followed by Mali that beat Zimbabwe 3-1. Zimbabwe are now out of this tournament. After winning their first match against their neighbors, the DR Congo will now meet Libya in yet another crucial match that will shape Group B. Niger, on the other hand, after a draw with Libya on Sunday, will meet the Red Devils of Congo Republic. A win for either Mali, Cameroon or Burkina Faso will grant them express entry. Mali and Cameroon still remain favorite to proceed.
Now, before we end our news bulletin today, let's take a recap of our top stories.
In Africa today, incumbent Kampala Lord Mayor Erias Lukwago wins the city mayor race. Chagulanyi's lawyer files arbitrary detention complaint at the United Nations. Also today, in United States, Joe Biden sworn in. And in sports, CHAN 2021 race to quarterfinals gets tighter.
That was the news. Thank you for watching. Please stay tuned. More programming coming your way.
This is Africa, and that was the news.